and the scheduling and the resource allocation, and also we have discussed the cell search process. So can anyone tell which are the two scheduling algorithms which are used in the LTE? Scheduling algorithms. Which are the two scheduling algorithms? Anybody? So one is the channel dependent scheduling and channel independent scheduling. So the channel dependent scheduling further divided into two categories, that is frequency diverse scheduling and frequency selective scheduling. So today we'll study the random access procedures. So here in order to be synchronized with the network, so the random access channel procedures are user equipment. Here suppose a user equipment wants to access the network. So first it will try to attach or synchronize with the network. So in the LTE, a separate channel, that is a physical random access channel, is provided for the initial access of the network. So here the user equipment also obtain the uplink timing information from the initial handshake. So in the LTE, so there are two random access mechanisms. So first one is the non-synchronized random access, and the second one is the synchronized random access. So coming to the synchronized non-synchronized random access, so which it is used so it is used when the user equipment has not been time synchronized, or when the user equipment uplink loses the synchronization. So its main purpose is to obtain the synchronization of the uplink. So notify the E node B that the user equipment has data to transmit, or data, or to transmit a small amount of control information and the data. So coming to the synchronized random access, so in the synchronized transmission from the E node B to the scheduler. So here we are going to focus on the non-synchronized random access. So here the procedure for the synchronized random access is similar to, except that it is not needed the response from the uplink timing information. So here after the cell search procedure, so the user equipment has obtained the downlink synchronization. So here, however, the uplink timing is not established due to the round trip propagation delay. So the non-synchronization or non-synchronized access allows the E node B to estimate the user equipment transmission timing to within a fraction of the cycle prefix, and inform the user equipment about the timing correction. So here are the non-synchronized random access procedures, which will consist of 4 steps. So here the first step, so which has displayed in the figure. So this is the non-synchronized random access procedure. So make a note of this figure. So this concept is very important. Definitely one question will come for the examination from this concept. So here in the first step, so the multiple user equipments will transmit randomly selected random access code. Coming to the second step, so the E node B conducts a multi-user detection process and allocates the resources to the detected user equipments. So using the allocated resources. So while coming to the fourth, so the user transmits the contents and message the initial when the previous steps are successfully. So it and the each user equipment initiate the data communication. We have two ends, that is one is user equipment and eNode B. So in the first step we have the random access camel. In the second step since we have random access so many of will go depth in each step. Once you copied you can inform me, I will go for the explanation. So in the first step we have the random access preamble transmission. So here in the first step, so the user equipment randomly selects a random access preamble which is transmitted by the eNode B and transmits on the physical random access channel, that is a PARCH physical channel. So open loop power control is used to determine the initial transmit power level. So here the multiple user equipments may transmit their random access preambles simultaneously through the same channel, and the eNode B monitors the random access channel and conducts the multi-user detection by identifying the random access channel transmission. So here the random access channel signals from the different user equipments which are based on the ZOF2 sequences with the different cyclic shift in a zero cross correlation between them. Here in the first step, so this zero cross correlation of the ZOF2 sequence will allow the eNode B to simultaneously detect the multiple user equipments using a correlation based detection process. So here the eNode B also calculates the timing correlation for the uplink transmission. So coming to the second step, so that is the random access response. So here if a random access is attempted is detected, so the eNode B will transmit the corresponding random access responses to on the downlink shared channel, which will contain the identity of the detected preamble, the timing correlation for the uplink transmission, and a temporary identity for the transmission in the following steps, and initial uplink resource grant. So here second step, so the random access will respond to the backoff indicator to instruct the user equipment to back off a period of time before retrying another random access attempt. So here link scheduling grant for the following uplink transmission contains a 20 bits which will contain the 20 bits. So here for the user equipment, once the random access preamble is transmitted, so it will going to monitor the physical downlink control channel for the random access response which is identified by the random access radio network temporary identifier, that is RA RNTI, as the time frequency slot carrying the preamble which is associated with an that is radio access random access radio network temporary identifier. So if the received random access response matches the transmitted preamble, so here the user equipment may stop the monitoring process. So here coming to the third step, that is the scheduled transmission. So here after the step 2, so the user equipment in the is uplink synchronized and can be transmitted the additional messages on the uplink shared channel. So in this step, so we can assist the contention resolution. So that if the user equipment that perform the random access attempts in the same frequency, resources are used for the different preambles. So here the different user equipments can be identified by the E node B and there is no collision. So here to resolve the contention for access, so the user equipment that detects a random access preamble which will transmit a message containing a terminal identity. So here if the user equipment is connected to a cell, so the cell radio network temporary identifier, that is a CRNTI, will be tool which is a unique user equipment ID at the cell level. So otherwise a core network identifier is used. So here in the step 1, so the HARQ protocol is supported to improve the transmission reliability. So to the fourth step, so it has contention resolution. So here in this step, so the E node B will transmit the contention resolution message on the downlink shared channel, so which contains the identity of and procedure. So here if this user equipment has not been assigned, so a CRNTI, it's CRNTI. So the HRQ protocol is the step and the user equipment with the successful access will transmit an HARQ acknowledgement. Random access procedures. So this table is for the content of random access resource grant. So where we have the information type, the number of bits and what purpose we are using. So in the first we have the hopping flat. So the number of bits are 1. So here we are using for to indicate whether the physical uplink shared channel frequency hopping is applied in the following step. So next we have the fixed size resolution block assignment. So the number of bits are 10 bits. So it will indicate the assigned radio resource for the following transmission. So next we have truncated modulation and coding scheme. So the bits are used is 4 bits. So it is used for determining the modulation and coding scheme. So we have TPC command for the scheduled physical uplink shared channel. So the number of bits are 3. So it is used for adjustment the transmit power of the physical uplink shared channel. So we have a UL delay, that is uplink delay. So here the number of bits are 1. That is used for it will adjust the uplink transmission timing. So similarly we have in last we have a CQI request, this channel quality indicator request. So the number of bits are 1. So it is used for non-contention based random access procedure, which will determine whether the aperiodic CQI report is included in the corresponding physical uplink shared channel. So this is about the random access procedures. So next we have power control in the uplink. So it is also very important concept. So it is clear, the random access procedure is clear. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಾ random access procedure? Whether you understood or not, random access procedure. So next we have an power control in the uplink. So here with the SCFDMA based transmission in the LTE uplink. So the orthogonality between the intra-cell transmission from the multiple user equipments is achieved. So which will remove the intra-cell interference. And the near for issue typical of CDMA based systems such as WCDMA or HSPA. So this will lose the intercell interference as the major cause of interference and the performance degradation, especially for the cell edge of the user equipments. So here in the LTE, in the uplink is to control the interference which is caused by the user equipment to the neighboring cells by maintaining the required SINR at the serving cell. So here we can describe the power control schemes for the physical uplink shared channel transmission in the uplink. So here the convolution power control in the uplink is to achieve the same SINR for the different user equipments at the base station. So which is also known as full compensation, but it suffers low spectral efficiency as the common SINR is limited by the cell edge user equipments. So here in the power control in the uplink, so it will specify the functional power is FPC as the low power control scheme. It will full or partial compensation of the path loss and allow to operate with a minor impact on the cell interior. They are able to transmit the higher data rates. Power control. So there is a power control to get transmission power to the 1 minute. So here, based on which the user equipment adjusts the transmission power according to the, that is P is equal to minimum P max, 10 log M plus P naught plus alpha dot PL into dBm. So where Pmax is the maximum user equipment transmission power. So capital M is the number of assigned PRBs. So P naught is the parameter that controls the mean received SINR, and alpha is the spell specific path loss for the compensation factor, and PL is the downlink path loss estimate which is calculated in the user equipment. So note that the transmit power will increase with the M, which is to ensure that the same power spectral density irrespective of the number of PRBs. So here we only consider the path loss and assume that. So here we will only consider the path loss and we will assume that that is a 10 log. We will assume that that is a 10 log M plus P naught plus alpha dot PL less than or equal to P max. So then the received signal power at the E node B is, so when we consider the path loss and assume this 10 log path loss, we are assuming that is a 10 log M plus P naught plus alpha dot into PL, which is less than or equal to P max. So then the received power at the E node B is, that is PR, that is denoted as PR is equal to, that is P minus PL, which is equal to 10 log M plus P naught plus alpha minus 1 dot PL into dBm. So here if the alpha is equal to 1, so each user equipment has a constant received power which will corresponding to full compensation or channel inversion. So similarly, if alpha is equal to 0, so each user equipment has the same transmission power, that is the independent of the path loss. So that is there is no power control in the system. So similarly for alpha varies between 0 and less than 0 and 1. So it is the FPC, and the different user equipments will have the different PR. So depending on their path loss to the serving base station. So similarly, by considering both the open loop and closed loop components, so the user equipment will set its total transmission power by using the following formula. So by using the following formula. So that is P is equal to minimum of P max, comma 10 log M plus P naught of J plus alpha of J dot PL plus delta MCS plus F into delta I into dBm. So there are three different physical uplink shared channel transmission type corresponding to J is equal to small j is equal to 0, 1, 2. So here for the condition J is equal to 0, so the for physical uplink shared channel, so the retransmission corresponding to the semi persistent grant. So for J is equal to 1, so the retransmission corresponding to a dynamic scheduled grant. So similarly for the J is equal to 2, so the retransmission will corresponding to the random access response grant. So the parameters which are described as follows. So similarly for J is equal to 0 or 1, so the P naught is composed of the sum of the cell specific, which is a nominal component, and the user equipment specific component, which is provided by the higher layers. So for the J is equal to 2, so the P naught is a spell specific parameter which is signaled from the higher layers. So similarly for J is equal to 0 or 1, so alpha of J is a 3-bit cell specific parameter. So therefore the alpha of J belongs to that is 0, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7 up to 1. So for similarly for J is equal to 2 or alpha of J is equal to 1. So here the delta MCS. So here the delta MCS is a user specific parameter depending on the chosen modulation and the coding scheme MCS. So here a large value of delta MCS will corresponds to the higher coding rate and our higher modulation order. So similarly the delta high, so the delta I is a user specific closed loop closed loop correction. So correction value which is included in the physical downlink control channel, so which is also referred to as the uplink power control. That is the transmit power control, that is the TPC command. So here this is the compensate of the following effects which are included the power amplifier error, so the path loss estimation error and the intercell interference level changes. So similarly there are two types of closed loop power control which are defined in the LTE. So in the first one is the accumulated and the second one is the absolute. So here coming to the absoluted. So here coming to the accumulated. So here the user equipment will apply an offset based on delta high using the latest transmission power values as a reference. So that is F of delta high, which is equal to F of delta high minus 1 plus delta I minus k. So these values of the values of delta I is that is delta I will not belongs to that is -1, 0, 1, 3 of the. So for example, so the FTD mode k is equal to 4, and for the TDD mode the value of k will depend on the uplink and downlink configuration. So coming to the absolute the second one is the absolute. So here the user equipment will adjust the transmission power with an absolute value based on the delta I. So for that we have that is f of delta I is equal to delta I minus k. So for this case, so the value of delta I, so the delta is not belongs to that is -4, -4, -1, 1 and 4. So here for the TDD mode, sorry, for the FTD mode, so the k is 4, and for the TDD mode, so the k value will depends on the uplink and the downlink configuration. So here a similar power control schemes employing the FPC is used for the sounding reference signal. So this is about the power control. So is there any doubts? So these two are random access procedures, and the power control are very important. So is there any doubts? You can ask me. I'll make sure that I will clear your doubts. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಾ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ?
Yes, sir.
So okay, next we'll move on to the fifth module. So here the fifth module is that is the radio resource management and the mobility management. So here the knowledge level we are going to study is K3. So here the course outcome of this module is to test and evaluate the performance of the resource management and the packet data processing and the processing and transport algorithms. So here in this module, so we are going to study the PDCP overview, MAC and RLC overview, and RRC overview, mobility management. So in the mobility management, we will discuss the two types, that is S1 mobility and X2 mobility, and at last we will discuss the intercell interference coordination. So here in the before going to study the radio resource management, so we have some introduction point. So here the LTE packet switch network from end to end, which is for the LTE between the packet data network gateway, that is the PDN gateway, and the user equipment. So here a PDCP entity, coming to the PDCP overview. So a PDCP entity control plane or with the user plane, depending on which the radio bearer is it is carrying the data. So here the PDCP entity, and each PDCP entity which is associated with one or two RLC entities depending on the radio period characteristics. So under the RLC mode, so the PDCP is used for control channel and channel type channel. Here in the PDCP overview, so the main services and functions of the PDCP sublayer for the user plane and control plane, which has shown in this figure. So this figure indicates the PDCP functions for the main service for user and control plane. So make a note of this figure. So this is also very important. So make a note of this figure. So here the PDCP is a packet data convergence protocol. So it is associated either with the control plane or with the user plane, depending on which the radio bearer is carrying the data for. So here each radio bearer is also associated with the one PDCP entity. So each PDCP entity is associated with one or two RLC entities. So here we have two planes, that is one is user plane and control plane. So here for the user plane, so the header compression and the decompression of the IP data flows with the robust header compression, that is ROHC protocol. So here the ciphering and deciphering of the user plane data. So similarly, so in the sequence, so 1 minute. Sorry for the inconvenience. So here in the sequence, so the delivery and reordering of the upper layer, that is PDUs at the handover. So similarly, so the buffering and the forwarding of the upper layer, the PDUs from the serving E node B to the target E node B during the handover. So in the fifth point, so the timer based desorting of SDUs in the uplink. So similarly for the control plane, so the ciphering and the deciphering of the control plane data. So here the integrity protection and the integrity verification of the control plane data. So we can transfer of the control plane data also in the control plane. So here the again the PDCP PDUs, which is divided into two categories. So the first one is the PDCP data PDU and the second one is the PDCP control PDU. So in the PDCP data PDU, which is used in both the control and the user plane to transport the higher layer packets. So it is also used to convey either user plane data containing a compressed or uncompressed IP packet over the IP packet or the control plane data containing one RRC message and a message authentication code for the integrity, that is a MAC I fields for the integrity protection. So for the integrity protection. So coming to the PDCP control PDU, which is used only within the user plane to convey a PDCP status report, control the PDCP status report during the handover and feedback information for the header compression. So here unlike a PDCP data PDU, the PDCP control PDU does not carry any higher layer SDU, but rather it is used for peer-to-peer signaling between the PDCP entities at the two ends. So here this figure indicates the construction of the PDCP data PDU formats from the PDCP SDU for the user plane and the control plane. So here the various types of the PDCP PDU is carried on the user and the control plane. So here there are three different types of the PDCP data PDUs, which will distinguish by the length of the sequence number SN. So the PDCP SN is used to provide the robustness against the packet loss and to guarantee the sequentially delivery at the receiver. So here the PDCP data PDU with the long SN, which is used for the with the short SN, which is used for the transport mode. So here beside cipher data, so the PDCP data PDU used for the user plane constants, that is a DRC field. So that is to distinguish the data and the control PDUs. So this is required because the PDCP data PDU can carry both the user plane and the control plane data. So it also the PDCP data PDU for the control plane comprises a MAC I field for 32 bits integrity protection. So coming to the header compression. So here we have one table, so which indicates the various types of PDCP PDU which are carried on the same user plane and the control plane. So we can go through that. That is a PDCP PDU type, the length of the sequence number length, and which is for which mode it is applicable. So here user plane PDCP data PDU for the long SN. So we have SN length is 12 bits, and which is applicable for either AM mode or this acknowledgement mode or unacknowledgement mode. Similarly for user plane PDCP data, so we have a short SN, so which is length of 7 bits, and it is used for the unacknowledgement mode. So for the control plane PDCP data PDU, so it is the length is 5 bits, and which is applicable for the AM or UM mode. So control PDU RLC, so the RLC mode is AM or RM mode. So in the last we have the PDCP control PDU for the PDCP status report. So here the length is not applicable. So the RLC mode is acknowledged mode. So next we have the header compression. So here in the header compression protocol in the LTE, it is based on the robust header compression, that is ROHC framework, which is defined by the Internet Engineering Task Force, that is IETF. So here the PDCP entities are configured by the upper layers to use the header compression, so which is only performed on the user plane data. So here need for the header compression. So here all the services in the LTE are IP based and are based on the framework of IP and other related protocols. So here if the IP framework provides the cost-effective mechanisms for delivery of the higher bandwidth data. So here but these protocols bring the header overhead at the network layer, transport layer, and the application layer. So this will leads to redundant and the repetitive information and unnecessary consumes for the radio profiles and defined for the ROHC framework. So here each profile is specified to a particular layer. So for example, TCP or IP, RTP or UDP or IP. So here the supported profiles in the 3GPP release 8 are listed in the table. So we can go through this table. So here next we have the integrity. So here we have integrity and ciphering. So here in the integrity, so the integrity protection function includes both the integrity protection and integrity verification. So here in the integrity, the PDU header and the data part of the PDU is integrity protected before the ciphering. So here the integrity protection is provided by the MAC-I field of length. So here during the transmission, so the value of the MAC field is calculated based on the keys provided by the RRC and the radio bearer identifier. So the count value and the direction of the transmission. So here the receiver sent authentication code on the received message using the same parameters and algorithms which are used by the sender. Pass the integrity check and the PDCP PDU will be discarded. It gets the code. So it's the 32 bits which is divided into HFN and PDCP SN. So coming to the ciphering. So here ciphering is it includes both the ciphering and the deciphering. So it is performed on the both the control plane and the user plane. So here for the control plane, so the data part of the PDU is ciphered, and in the user plane only the MAC-I field is ciphered. So here the ciphering function is activated by the upper layer, so which also configure the ciphering algorithm and the ciphering key to use. So here the ciphering is done by the XOR operation of the data unit with the ciphering stream. So similarly, so the ciphering stream is generated by the ciphering algorithm, which is based on the ciphering keys, radio bearer identity, value of the count, and the direction of the transmission and the length of the stream. So this is about the PDCP overview and the main services and the functions of the PDCP sublayer. So is there any doubts in the PDCP overview?